Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Inner Voice. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have my next guest today to have you understand everything that she does, or most everything that she does. And just, I can't tell you, I saw her name, I saw her picture, I saw what she does, and I'm like, yes, yes, and yes. So, I am thrilled beyond belief to welcome Brandy Hudson. And that's Brandy with an I, guys. Brandy with an I. So if you want to look her up, Brandi Hudson. She is a happiness coach and motivational speaker. Brandy has collaborated with Fortune 500 companies, and she helps her clients enhance their happiness to easily align them with success. Welcome, Brandy. Thank you for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm equally as excited to be here with you today.
How do we let's just start off right? How do we explain to people what a happiness coach is?
Oh, I love that. Well, a happiness coach is me. And what I do is I partner with people to really center on happiness and develop this really beautiful emotional resilience so that you can more easily align with success. I normally find that we have gotten as a society to this place where we believe that like challenges, worry, frustration, anger, angst are normal. And they are part of the human experience, but we should be spending most of our time in those high vibration emotions of love, peace, joy, ease, and know that when those other emotions show up, they're coming to tell us that we're off track and that we should shift. And so I really help people realize that we have to change our perspective, change our intention. And when we do that, then we much more easily align with the success that we're seeking.
I love that. I love that. So let's go to the beginning. Let's
Okay.
go to the beginning. How would you say what led you here? What's your journey? If you could tell our listeners that.
Yeah, I'd love to share that. So I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I was born to teenage parents and they really, had something to prove. I think everyone told them they made this mistake by getting pregnant at such a young age. And so they were really, really, really committed to my success and success as defined by like the average American, right? So they wanted me to go to great schools and get great grades and like be in all the clubs and graduate with honors and et cetera, et cetera. And I did all the things, right? I mean, literally, when I graduated from or was going into senior year, I guess, my parents put on the fridge like the top 20 universities in America. And they said, you could go to any of these. And that was it. That's just how I was raised. And I fast forward found myself, right? Like being an executive at a Fortune 500 company, being married to the man of my dream, having a child, and still feeling like life felt really hard. And I was like, okay, I have all the success that my parents ever aspired for me to have. And I'm so grateful to them because they poured into me in this most beautiful way. But I wasn't really feeling like life was very happy, nor did I feel like it was easy. And I just stepped back and said to myself, I think I can take the same skills that I've used to be very successful in life and figure out how I can have that level of success, but also have it feel easy and have it feel as though each day was full of joy. And so that's how I got on this trajectory. And then I realized that I've always been obsessed with human potential ever since
Mm.
I was a young girl. I'd always read lots of books about it, but I'd really thought about manifestation and co-creation, whatever you want to call it, from the perspective of an outcome. Like, what do I want to have? Right. So a house, a car, a husband, a child, a job, a promotion, money. What do I want to have versus thinking about it around like, who do I want to be? How do I want to experience the world? And when I shifted there, I realized that it's many of the same skills, but you just have to have these different intention. And so I did that for myself. And then the business started very organically with people coming to me, basically saying, I'll have what she's having.
I love that. I love that because that's a really great way to think about it. Now, like, I want to be this, but I want to have, or we could even change it. I will have this, I'm having this, right?
I'm
I
having.
think that is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So, because I, looked at your website and you have this program, and correct me if I'm wrong, base, right? Everything is base. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yes. So when I was thinking about how do I help people understand the work and how the work that we do is different from other work they may have experienced, um, it just came to me, right? I feel like it was really a download that I was going to call the process base because it's foundational to living the life of your dreams. And so the acronym stands for beliefs, alignment, self-awareness, and emotional resilience. And all of them are important, but I'll walk you through. So B is really like, what are the beliefs that you have, right? And so I oftentimes start with my clients and we talk about like, do you even believe that you deserve to be happy? So oftentimes like women and people of color, like they don't even have
Right.
that as like a foundational belief that I just get to be happy and life gets to be easy for me, because we're oftentimes taught that we can achieve anything that we want, but it's going to be hard and it's going to be challenging. And so we approach life from that perspective. So what are the beliefs that you have? What is it that you're seeking? And are you in alignment to it? So the A is about alignment. I tell everyone everything in life, and all the listeners, like after you finish listening to this, I want you to sit and really reflect on this point. Everything in life that you're seeking, it's because you fundamentally believe it'll make you happy. No matter what, if you just keep saying, but why, but why, but why, and you get to the base of it, the base of it is that you always believe that this thing that you're striving for will make you happy. And the trick is that you have to be happy first, right? So if what you're seeking is up here at the top of the mountain and it's going to make you happy, but the process to which you're trying to achieve it is filled with anxiety and worry and fear, maybe some frustration and anger, then you're just so disparate. Like those two things are just so far apart on this spectrum that it's really challenging to get there. It's like pushing a boulder up a mountain. But what if I told you that if you could shift that alignment and be the person in advance of having the outcome, the person who already has it, what are the emotions you would feel? Do you believe you would feel if you had this outcome, and be that person now? And then there's no chasm there. You're just going to instantly be able to call in the things that you want, and life starts to feel magical and magnetic. And then the S is about self-awareness, right? If you look through the history of time, we all have this same process, this kind of healing process that we go through. And early on, it really is a lot of like outward like blame, right? Like my boss did this, my parents didn't do this, this is happening to me, right? And so this self-awareness is really about taking this step back and understanding your your how you're impacting the situation. And when we do that, we take all of our power back. Because if I spend all my time saying, well, my parents did this when I was little, and my sister did this, and my boss did this, then I need all of those people to change for my life to be different. But if I can take a step back and say, this is what I can do for me in order to live this big, beautiful life, then I have all the power I need to create the life that I deserve. And then the E is the most challenging, right? It's emotional resilience. And I say it's challenging because it requires this deep reflection over our lives and to really understand kind of like where has stress popped up for us, where maybe have we been in a traumatic situation, and how do we keep the memory of those experiences, but really release the emotion of it? Because when you have dense emotions tied to the past, unfortunately, that causes this pattern to be recreated in your life where you're living it over and over and over again, right? And the opposite is also true. So I want to share the good news story too, right? Like when you have these beautiful experiences in your past with these really strong, high vibrational emotionals, then you see that you continue to live that life over and over again as well. I tell my 7-year-old son, the better it gets, the better it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the opposite is true. The worse it gets, the worse it gets. But if we look and we think about our beliefs, how we align to what we're seeking, how we have self-awareness of the role that we play, and then how we develop this beautiful emotional resilience, then we're going to be able to really align with the life of our dreams much more easily.
And I think, you've tapped on some really good points, great points, actually. I find that when I work with clients as well, they're always focusing on that negative piece. That piece is what they're like, well, if I, and should I, and if I could have, would have, should have, all that stuff. And I tell them, well, think about this. You're wanting financial freedom. Do you just walk past a penny and say, okay, it's just a penny, I'm not going to pick it up? But if you picked it up and had gratitude and said, thank you, whether it was heads up or tails down, doesn't matter, everybody.
Doesn't matter.
Right. Pick up the penny and say, thank you. So there's the gratitude. And then also say, what else is possible? How can it get better than this? And that's really important because I've done that. And the next day I found a dime. The next time I was looking, there was a quarter. And then one time I found like $5, like a $5 bill. So I'm like, all right. And everything else, what else is possible? How can it get better than this? And I think that that happiness piece is really aligning, because when you see yourself, I'll speak for myself. Yeah. When I see myself doing something and it brings me an uplifting feeling and it puts a smile on my face, I want more of that. And that's what I love about your program. I think this is just absolutely brilliant. So our program here is all about your inner voice. So let me ask you, how has trusting your intuition played a role in your personal and professional life?
Oh my gosh, I love that. 3 years ago, I told myself I was going to follow my intuition fearlessly. There is nothing that has ever happened in my life that didn't go the way that I wanted to, where I didn't have a previous knowing, right? And so that ability to align with your knowing, or as you call it, your inner voice, is all that matters in this lifetime, right? And so the base process really does help people to quiet all the noise so they can hear the inner voice, right? When we have a lot of chaos in our life, when we have had a lot of trauma or stress in our lives, sometimes we become so disconnected from ourselves that we can't hear what I call that knowing, what you call that inner voice. And so part of the work that I do is really teaching people, how do we quiet our mind, right? Like our brain has 70,000 thoughts per day. 90% of those thoughts are repetitive and 80% of those thoughts are negative. And so when you're in that doom loop, right, you can't help but be off track from where you're actually trying to go. And so for me, what I know is that when I listen to my inner voice, when I follow every step, whether it be like this morning, I got 2 pings to just like call people. And so when we're done taping today, I'm literally going to reach out to them. I don't really know why, but like when I follow it fiercely, it always makes sense. And what we have to just know is that the universe is infinitely intelligent. It is more intelligent than all of us put together. And so we can't try to make it make sense. We just need to follow that knowing and trust it in this really beautiful way and develop a relationship with that knowing and realize that that is the highest timeline we can ever walk, is one that follows that intuition.
And you trusting it has gotten you, I'm just going to say from what I can see, has gotten you to this point, has gotten you that marriage, has gotten you the career, has gotten you the home, has gotten you the child. All those things are check boxes. Yeah. Like, yes, yes, yes. So again, we go back to what else is possible? How can it get better than this? And you are doing it, and you're doing it for yourself, and you are doing it for others. Now, I'm going to be very candid, everybody. And Brandy with an I does not know this, but I'm going to share this with her. Okay. I got an email from Brandy and she's like, oh, I'd love to be on your podcast. And if people don't know, I do get a lot of those emails like, oh, I've watched you here and I love to be on your podcast. I've had about 7 in the past month, and Brandy's vibe just by her face and just by me looking at her website, I said yes to. I'm like, yes, come on. Because there was just such a, I want to say, a no BS attitude about you and so much heart. So I'm really wanting to pay you a compliment and let you know that I feel intuitively that you're going to get bigger than what you think you're going to get.
Oh,
So
I mean,
just so you know.
you're literally bringing tears to my eyes. I greatly appreciate that. For me, this work is like so mission driven, and it's I for sure live a life beyond what my little girl self ever thought was possible. And I think my goal in this lifetime and my mission in this lifetime is to help people realize that that's accessible to all of us. Because as a little Black girl in Detroit, Michigan, to teenage parents, like I did not think that I could live
Right.
in San Francisco, have this great job, this great life, and have access to the things and places that I have had. And I think I'd love to sit around and think that I'm so special, but we're all special.
We are.
We
We
all
are.
get to do that. And I'm grateful to people like you, and I'm grateful that I get to be able to do this work every day. It's a gift.
Truly, truly, truly. And again, much continued success to you. All
Okay.
right, so we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty, everybody. Um, if you could say to a client
Yeah.
that is stuck, they're like stuck in their everyday thinking of, I've tried this and I've tried this and I wanted to do this and I don't seem to manifest what I want. I can't create that. What advice would you give them?
Yeah. I think that sometimes people do really come to us and say I've done all of this. And one, you almost always find out they actually haven't. They haven't had this kind of long-term beautiful commitment to it. But I think even before that, we want to take a step back, and you have to imagine yourself as that different person, right? So we can check all the boxes, we can take all the steps, but until you see yourself as a person who, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you have to see yourself as a person who runs a big business, as a person who is married, as a person is who, whatever fill in the blank is, because until the image of yourself matches the image um of what you want, then it's just going to be too disconnected. And I find oftentimes that people are going through the process, they're doing the steps or taking the actions that we've said or that we urge them to do, or someone else has urged them, but in the middle of it, like between the steps, there have all of that negative self-talk that we just talked about, right? And so how can we stay in that knowing, stay in that space of, as I like to say, is my success is inevitable. So if you're always in that mindset that my success is inevitable, and to my point, right? Like everyone talks about mindset, I really focus on emotions because our emotions have to be aligned with that mindset that you have. And when you feel, right, those high vibration emotions in conjunction with those beliefs that we talked about, then you're going to make it. But people also just have to know there's like this divine timing. And if you only know that you trust it endlessly if you never start that conversation of I've done it all and it's still not working, because then you don't trust that it's going to work out if you shift to that space. So really trying to stay there, but also having grace with yourself. Like we all have bad days. So if you have a bad day and you're like, hey, this just feels hard today, then just let it feel hard and like be all in those feelings, and then just like let them go and move on.
Yeah, exactly. And you've talked about some. What other misconceptions about happiness that come into your life with clients that you frequently encounter? What
Yes.
do you think is a big,
Okay.
yeah.
One I talked about at the beginning, but the second one that I really want to focus on, I think sometimes people think that the work I do is about this like toxic positivity, like, okay, like no matter what, that we're happy.
Go
And, like,
team. Yeah, right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, so we're not cheerleaders. What we're doing, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, is shifting our belief so that the majority of our time we should be in these high vibration emotions. And that, similar to when pain shows up, if you were like in pain for 10 days, you'd go to the doctor to try to figure it out. Similarly, if you're in those dense, low vibration emotions for an extended period of time, you really want to like work on shifting to these high vibration emotions and seeing what's causing that. So when we feel all of the emotions, all of them, depending on the circumstance, then we can move through them. What happens, why people usually get stuck in those low vibration emotions, is because they didn't actually allow themselves to feel. They didn't allow themselves to cry when they were sad, right? Like I hear sometimes parents at the playground and they'll say to their child, "You're okay," right? And it's actually, it's really challenging to do that to a child because the child isn't okay. That's why the child is sad, right? And so we want to treat ourselves like that child who probably didn't have the space to just be sad. So when you're sad, be sad, and then move through that emotion, really work on it so that you can get back to the high vibration emotion. But the biggest misconception is that I expect people to always be happy, but we're going to be on this continuum. We're humans. Part of the human experience is to feel and be with those dense emotions, understand what lesson they're coming to teach you, what they're coming to say. I lost a dear friend 2 years ago and I was sad for quite some time, right? Like losing a young person. I wasn't just like, well, that's like the circle of life and that's what
Right.
happens. I didn't just move on, right? Like I really had to navigate that. And that's okay because that is human, right? But we want to get back to that space where then we're in this beautiful space of being able to really honor the life that she lived and to live this really big, beautiful life because of that.
And that's a huge misconception that people, come up with. They're like, oh, well, am I supposed to be happy every day, every moment? And like you said, it's not the rah rah sis boom bah happy cheerleading people. I think, and correct me, please correct me. For me personally, sometimes the things that happen that cause me to step outside of my comfort zone and cause me the biggest ahas are the biggest pieces that give me the happiness. I know, and I'm going to talk really bluntly here, everybody. I've talked about this before, but as a child and having being sexually abused at a young age, I think when I became a massage therapist and then became a massage instructor, that experience allowed me to teach from a different place that I wouldn't have had. And there was one, there was one class that I taught, and out of, it was a smaller class, out of 14 students, after we did the whole lecture piece and then we did hands-on, they weren't really jiving with each other. And I said, what's going on, guys? This is week 3. Let's get everybody, what? Off the table, get dressed. We're going to have a little powwow. I explained to them what happened. 9 out of those 14 students were abused.
Yeah.
9 out of 14. And ever since then, that day, things just shifted because even though that wasn't an unpleasant experience and I moved through it, I had that experience to be able to create something that I could relate to help others move through it. And it was a wow for me. It was a wow. I'm like, all right, I understand. I mean, my parents always used to say everything happens for a reason. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's nice. But now it's like, yes,
Yeah.
I hear you and I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So again, everyone that's listening, it's not about, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be, in a way, we're going to say stuck for a moment, but see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's what you are teaching people is like, here's where that goes. You're not just, the road just doesn't stop here.
Yes.
So phenomenal, phenomenal. Um, what daily practices would you say would be good to keep that happiness and well-being?
Yes, I have three and I share them. And it's interesting because sometimes I share these three and people are like, oh, that's all that you have to share. And so I'm going to start with this. Don't knock it unless you're literally doing these three things every single day, because they're simple, but they're not easy and it requires a level of commitment. And so the three things, one, you noted earlier, is to have this like really beautiful gratitude practice. And a couple of things about the gratitude practice that I always like to build on in case people aren't already doing it is, one, try to do it in the moment, right? So you called me on Saturday, left me a message that you wanted us to video. And in that moment, when I heard that message, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, because I'm really excited. I don't need to wait till like 7 p.m. to write it in a journal. I also do write it down later, but in that moment, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the alignment that the universe is having with my intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Like, so thank you. And then also thanking the person. And gratitude's so important, because if someone gives you a gift and you don't say thank you, are they ever going to give you another gift? Maybe if they're your mama, but maybe not otherwise. So you really want to be in this really beautiful practice of like thanking the universe for answering your prayers. And to your point earlier about the penny, the dime, the quarter, the $5 bill, is there is no order of magnitude for the universe. So you're getting what you believe you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to expand that possibility is by having a depth of gratitude for everything that comes in, right? Because if you first found a penny, that's kind of what your mind aligned to your desire. And then the $5 shows like, oh, I can actually call in anything, something much bigger, right? That's a $5 bill is exponentially bigger than a penny, right? And so the universe can work that fast as long as we can wrap our own minds around it. Two, after your gratitude practice, is really a meditation practice. And I mean like a real meditation practice. So not a mindfulness practice, which is also a good stepping stone towards a meditation practice. But we really want to change our brain waves. We want to move our brain waves from kind of what we're doing now, which is this beta brainwaves. We're in conversation, we can work, we can clean, we can do whatever, but we want to be able to get our brainwaves to alpha and theta and quiet them down, instead of living a life that's like beta when we're awake and delta when we're sleeping, and we're kind of skipping really quickly through those other brainwaves. Those brainwaves are the brainwaves of creation, and when you're in that state, you teach your mind to not race anymore, but you also can signal these visualizations to the universe that you want to call in. So we want to develop a deep meditation practice. And thirdly, it also, in order to quiet your mind, is to journal every day. So I think right when you wake up, and not like an orchestrated journal, like, oh, I taped a podcast, I worked on this, and like not rehashing your day. But I try right when I wake up. I have a 7-year-old, so I'm not perfect at this, but sometime in the morning, to just clear my mind. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really the stream of consciousness journaling, just getting everything out. And it can be as much as like, I can't believe my husband didn't help me clean the kitchen, to, oh my gosh, I have a long list of things, to, oh, I'm really looking forward to being on the podcast in a couple hours. Whatever is in your head. I found when I first started this practice that I was actually like, I'd be in the midst of writing, and then suddenly I would just be thinking. And so it was such a good reminder to me that my mind was racing, and that it was racing so much that I couldn't even write fast enough to get it all out, right? And so it helps you have this deep awareness, as we said in the base process. S is self-awareness, this deep awareness of just how much your brain really is just ruminating around things. So I promise you, if you do those three things and nothing else, if you don't have $1 to hire a coach, if you cannot even like do anything but these three things, you will shift your life dramatically over a consistent period of time.
And you know, our teachings are so neck and neck. It's just so awesome to see that, because I talk about gratitude as well, and I tell people, look, if you are thankful for something, look what's going to, more of that's going to come to you.
Yeah.
And I tell them to, just like you, I tell them to do a gratitude journal and write down a couple things that you're grateful for in the morning, even if it's just one. And then at night, go back and say, how did that gratitude show up in the day?
Oh, I love that.
Please feel free to use that.
Oh,
So, yeah. So I tell them, I'm like, so for example, I'm so grateful for my car. And that could sound silly to some people. But during the day, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I have this car, because if I had a smaller car, it wouldn't have allowed me to do this. You know, oh my gosh, I bought all these groceries and the trunk is so much bigger, and I was able to not make two. There was a big sale at Costco, and I went ahead and did this and that. You know, so it's these little things that we're looking at that we might take for granted that allows us to open. And I do this whole thing about mindset. I have an acronym for mindset, and that shift is huge when you change the mind shift, which is exactly what you're talking about, and having this simple practice of meditation. And I tell people too that it's like, if you can't cross your legs and take a singing bowl and go, you know, om, that's fine. I zone out when I wash the dishes. I zone out when I iron the clothes. I could zone out sitting outside and just looking at the lawn and just feeling the air and all these wonderful pieces of calmness.
you're
And
being
yet,
kind though. It's actually harder to zone out in activity, right? Like that actionable meditation is actually oftentimes much more challenging. So you,
really,
yeah, oh
okay.
yeah, but I love it. You're like, I can, right? Because you can do both two things at once. That's really a beautiful practice. And in from that space, you can really, as you already know, create this big, beautiful life. But I think that's a more challenging meditation.
Okay, because I sometimes when I meditate, like traditionally, I'll fall
Yeah.
asleep. I
Oh,
literally
fair.
fall asleep, and I'm like, "Well, that was good. What happened? What happened in that last 10 minutes?" But yeah, as Brandy said, you guys, the most important thing is to doing the practice. However you decide to do it, and be committed to that, because that commitment is saying yes to you. And
Oh,
like I always say, when you say yes to yourself, the universe says yes back. Or we can just say Gus, God, universe, spirit. Gus says yes back, which
wow.
is awesome. So can you tell people what do you got going on? What's coming up for you? What we're gonna put it on the website, guys, in the podcast. We'll tell you how to get a hold of Brandy. We'll put in her website. But do you have anything coming up for yourself that you want to
Yes, I'm
plug?
actually right now we're in the midst of launching a relationship course, which all my courses, group courses are called the Village. And so we're doing village relationships. And then coming up, depending on when this launches, but for the summer, we're going to do the Village finances. So it's going to be about abundance, success, career, and that's always a really hot topic. So people can find me at brandybhudson.com, Brandy with an I, as you mentioned. And there's also so much free content. So I do a breakthrough with Brandy on Thursdays. You can grab my morning routine off of my website. And also on the 1st and 15th of every month, I publish a journal that goes really deep on a topic such as this that can help people move their life forward. So I try to do a really beautiful balance of giving my insight and time freely, and then also have some courses that people can sign up for.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to say thank you so much for being on here. Will you come back? Because I know we can dive into so much more, and I'd love to have you
It would
on
be an
here
honor.
again.
It would be an
Excellent.
honor.
Excellent. Well, as always, guys, you can find us on mindbodyspirit.fm. And if you go there and you see a little microphone, you can pop in a little message and I will answer it. So remember, guys, we are here to connect. And when we connect, we educate. And when we educate, we grow. There's unity in community. And again, trust your inner voice. Have a great day, everyone. Be well.
Bye, everyone.